Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and this is episode 146, and that amazes me. We're sneaking up on the 3-year anniversary of our podcast, and I'm very happy to say that. We have great questions. Remember, if you have questions, podcast at DanJohnUniversity.com. You email it to me, and I'll do my best to answer each and every question. Today, we've got some good questions, and a couple of them kind of feed into some things I'm experiencing in my own life right now. So let's talk. Our first question comes from Ben. I'm hoping to start the transformation program soon, especially after reading your and some of the site members' results from earlier this year. Transformation program, if you don't know, you can go over on the site, but it's a 3-day week. Basically a whole body workout with only 2 exercises. There's a total of 6 exercises. You do 3 days a week, 3 sets of 8 with a minute rest. They're whole body exercises. So even though you only do 6 sets in a workout, with that time restrictor and 8 reps and the fact that they're full body movements, you get this strange bang for the buck out of it. I think that was one of the original titles of it, Bang for the Buck. And I think I turned it into Transformation, to help my American football players when they transform from being football season to track. I don't know. I think that's why it is. I mean, who knows? My question is about calibrating weight ratios for the program. That is tough because they're a whole body. I'm just going to answer the easiest way I know before I go too deep into your question. I just use big natural plates. So if you're using pounds, it would be 10s, 25s on each side. So 65, 95, 115, 135. I've used 165 on the front squats with 2 35 and 25 pound bumpers. With the kilos, I imagine 40, 50, 60 would be really, that's not bad at all. My question is about calibrating weight ratios for the program. What do you think would be a good rule of thumb for the heaviest and lightest movements of using the 6 lifts? I was lucky when I first invented the program that all I had was a barbell, 35-pound weights, and 25-pound weights. So my options were 95, 115, and 165. And really that's why the program's the program. It took me a few months to figure it all out, but that's where it comes from. And those were the weights I used. Gosh, it's just funny to think about it. My weight room at the time quickly became Kelly's bedroom. So this is taking us back to 1992 or 1993. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that's when I came up with these ideas. So as a rule of thumb, big natural plates, probably not a lot of options. Should I strive to use the same weight across multiple lifts, or could each be slightly different? And he asked specifically about the whip snatch and the clean grip snatch. I think with the whip snatch and the clean grip snatch, at least in my case, that's the exact same number. The front squat and the overhead squat were kind of a bigger jump. Very often I'd warm up with 115 pounds with the overhead squat. So 3 sets of 8 with that, and then go to a really hard second one. Yeah, one time I did a 225 or, basically 100 kilos for the front squats for the 3 sets of 8. And I did that actually a number of times. It had been the 96 season. And I got to tell you, man, if you want to be in good shape, 3 sets of 8 in the front squat with 225, that'll get you there with a minute rest. That last set was, you feel like you're blowing a gasket here, as you stand up. Probably too much information. On the press curl day, you probably could use the same weight there. So the only real day that you're going to probably have variation is the squat day. I hope that helps. I've been experimenting with the rep scheme and rest intervals that the program calls for. I don't know why you would, but go ahead. It's a humbling experience. I won't embarrass myself too much with all my numbers, but safe to say that On a few exercises, I will still be working up to the bare minimum rep rest scheme of with 65 pounds before I can officially start the program. Yeah, and I think, Ben, that's okay. I think 65 is a good load. I've used 65 and 85 pounds on this program. With the big rubber 10-pound plates on the sides, one or two on each side. It's okay. You're building up. After going through physical therapy over the winter, it seems like a worthy goal, and I'm eager to begin in earnest. I agree with you, and it's like one of those programs that if you only have 15 minutes 3 days a week, it's a really good program. It will surprise you how much work you get in those 2-3 sets of 8 lifts. It goes fast, but you feel it for the end for a day or so. I thank you. Good question. Stephen asks, I recently injured my AC joint, his air conditioning. Wow. On my right side, and I found that I'm no longer able to bench press, an exercise which I know you're not a fan of, but I enjoy doing. Oh, no, I love the bench press. I just think it's overdone. Be sure you understand the difference. It's there. When you are a strength coach, the last thing most men need is more arm work and more bench press, but you can't stop them. I mean, it's just bizarre. They will, even through injury, keep benching, blow a pec off and they keep benching, come back and bench, I've been to my physio and I followed his recommendations, stretches, etc. I'm also decided to take off 3.5 weeks from lifting weights, which I found very hard. I know, it's tough. I am back lifting and running. I have found all exercises fine. Deadlifts, front squats, weighted pull-ups, shoulder press, kettlebell swings. That's a good program right there, except for the bench press. Yeah. From your experience, have you found that some men are just not able to bench press once they get an injury? Yes. Again, I don't like giving medical advice, but what happens with a lot of guys, especially here in North America, I get the sense you might be from Europe, but when they start living like this, and then it's just like you throw a ball or you whip a frisbee to somebody and say, oh, and it's because of the this posture that a lot of guys get, and when you do whip across here, it just does. It's like literally the straw and the camel kind of thing. Yeah. He follows up, should he stop bench pressing? Well, all I can really tell you is if the shoulder press is going fine, stick with the shoulder press and keep seeing the physio, keep doing the stretches, keep doing what you're supposed to do. And remember, once somebody tells you that you need to do this stretch, like my PT tells me to do this, that's, you might have even heard that thing pop. So I do this little, American touchdown, stretch. We call them touchdowns, actually. I need to do that every day. And when I do, this pops and this part of my neck pops. So obviously, even though I'm fine, I'm not fine. And I need to keep at the drills. So keep doing the stretches, keep doing what you were told to do. And then, and keep pressing the shoulder. I would stay off it, so every time you go in to test it, take time after that, if it hurts. So if you go in and test it and, the next day you wake up, okay, that means you have to wait again, I don't know, whatever, 3 weeks or whatever. Wait, retest it. If it still hurts, 3 weeks, wait, retest it. In those weeks, of course, keep doing the stretches, keep doing the what you've been told to do, and just see how that comes out. It's not uncommon at all, what you're talking about. Stephen goes on to note, my dog just came in, he also bought some chains for his barbells, and he's talking about how much more difficult his squats have become. Let me say this for the millionth time. That's not true. I use bigger, faster, stronger chains because they have collars on them. So they're chains with collars. And I would recommend, honestly, unless you're working with a geriatric situation or, really really, really new lifters to get pretty thick chains. I use their biggest ones for everybody. They're chains that are collars, okay? And if I could do it again, I've said this before, I would, in my ideal perfect world that I would reinvent, if I could do it all over again, I would like to do chains in probably every press and every squat and maybe even every deadlift. I figured out to be able to do chain vertical presses. I used to have this old milk crate, the way they used to make milk crates, not plastic. It was just, lots of metal, and it was perfect. I would sit down on it, which is strange to sit that low and press. And as I pressed, the chains would come up and get heavier. I thought it was great. Stephen, very good question. I hope things work out for you. We have a question from Benjamin. I have some difficulty to restrain myself to just one exercise of each movement pattern, push, pull, hinge, squat, carries, for some time length. I find myself the desire, kind of mind, and physical need to change about every 2 weeks. Actually, I don't think changing movement patterns every 2 weeks is bad. I do think you're probably going to get a little bit better if you go, in my experience, about 3 to 6 weeks before you change. 6 weeks is 6 weeks is pretty much on the edge of getting things out of an exercise anyway, as we'll discuss in another question. But if you could just push on to a third week, fine. But 2 is fine before you change. I don't think that's a problem. So I keep the push, pull, hinge, squat, carry structure, but I rotate regularly in the exercises. Am I spinning my wheels and slowing down my journey, or could I take advantage of how it seems I am wired? No, I don't know, Ben. I would actually encourage you, if you look at my easy strength stuff, which generally I don't recommend you change exercises during the first attempt and even the second one, so that you actually give it the 40 days or the 80 days. But once you've done it once, I think every 2 weeks you should change around that whole concept of same but different. Some of my friends who are throws coaches have had a lot of real good luck with like 2 weeks of incline bench, 2 weeks of bench press, 2 weeks of military, and then 2 weeks of decline. And you just keep coming back to that over and over and over. I played around with that with 4 of my better shot putters about a decade ago. And it was really interesting because let's just say we're in an incline bench in a 2 week block. So that's about 6 workouts. Yeah, 4 or 6 workouts, depending on which one, but let's just say 6. So on week 1, we'd have a day where we would incline with no chains. Day 2, 1 chain on each side, and day 3, 2 chains on each side, and then you repeat that the next week. When you came back to it, it'd be almost nearing 2 months later. It was almost like you had to relearn the lift, like in a workout or two. But we would always pick up on week 2, day 1, the workout with no chains, that they would just, the weights would just fly off and new records would happen. You can keep doing something that way fairly long, and it's very sustainable. So I like this idea. Okay. We have a question from Mark. I've heard you talk about strength standards when it comes to push and hinge, like a body weight overhead press or deadlifting twice your body weight. I wondered what weighted chin-up and squat numbers would fit in those. Mark, just type my name in, Dan John, and the phrase "sleepless in Seattle," and I have a whole bunch of different things there. Squat. I have to agree with what Tom Fahey told me and a few others. Dan Martin told me the same thing. Once you get over 400 in the squat, you really don't get much benefits on the field of play. Now, maybe you get benefit, obviously, if you're a powerlifter, you have to have, it's your sport. But the issue with the squat family is, of course, what do you mean by squatting? If you're just going to bend your knees and, it just, then it's different than if you do an actual, ass to grass squat, front squat. I like, once you learn to squat with me, we would teach you the goblet squat, and then I would like you to move up as quickly as we could in the overhead squat, with body weight, probably at the same time teaching you the front squat, get you up to body weight. Probably in the front squat, obviously an body weight overhead squat is something I would kind of expect. But once you get, let's just say 150% body weight, to in that ballpark, maybe more, obviously. But for most people, the overhead squat body weight, getting the front squat, if you're male, I kind of expect you to be over 200. But that's about as good. But you can find the rest of my standards over there at Sleep is in Seattle, the blog post I have over at danjohn.net. Oh, he has a follow-up. I've heard you mention the benefits of just hanging and sitting in the squat position. Yeah, that's my daily mobility routine. What would happen if I used the dead hang and resting squat as a daily mobility routine and didn't push them in terms of strength? Yeah, and worked on my push and hinge movements 3 times a week to build strength. Would it create a harmful imbalance? So you do the warm-up, sit in the goblet squat and hang, and then push and the hinge. No, I don't. I go for it. I mean, especially if it makes you want to work out and makes you keep coming back into the weight room. No, I try that out. It's not uncommon. You'll find it, you'll find it in a lot of Pavel's books, what you just said. And really, it's the way I would, again, if we go back to the beginning, I probably would have trained more like that than how I ended up. I do regret the heavy squat workouts of my past, but too late. We have a question from Gus. In a video of yours titled Pressing the 48 Kilo Bell from your podcast, you mentioned that someone weighing 225 should be able to just pick up the 48 and press it. Yeah, like me. That's the first time I saw it, I pressed it. I was kind of in shock hearing that, since it's somewhat of a half body weight press. I wonder if you also feel the same about someone who's 1.9 meters or 6'2" with a 2-meter wingspan. Well, yeah, I think you and I have almost the same wingspan. Are the expectations different for someone with longer limbs, or shouldn't it matter as much? Boy, that's going to be one of those questions where, I'd like to just sit here and go, get stronger, but frankly, some people like myself press fairly naturally, and I don't, and I don't even train, and my press is still pretty good. So yeah, it might be different for you. And sometimes when I'm answering questions, I wouldn't say I'm flippant, but I am. And I'll just say something. I'm amazed sometimes how unstrong a lot of people are, especially when I'll meet somebody who does what I do for a living, and they're not strong, not necessarily very mobile, not very flexible, not very athletic. And I know that everything I just said doesn't matter to be a good coach. I know that, but I'm sometimes kind of just amazed when, a 30-year-old male can't press a 50-pound kettlebell, the 24. I'm just like, wow, okay. I just assume someone in the field should be that strong, but clearly that's just not the truth. And he has a follow-up. Everybody's have follow-ups today. I always felt that when you have long arms, the actual arms can become the limiting factor in pressing, since the triceps become the weak link sooner, since the torso takes up so much of the work. Do you feel isolation work for the triceps is advised for someone who has longer limbs? Well, Gus, the only thing I could say is that, the great West Side barbell tradition of you can't have, they work their hamstrings, their abs, their lats and their triceps extremely hard, so that because those are the foundational pivot points for the big lifts. So yeah, I think work. I mean, you know, I mean, the military press was out of competition when I showed up, but I know a lot of those guys, the great Olympic pressers, felt all you need to do is press. But one of the more common assistant exercises would be strategic triceps work. So I would say your answer is yes, but I put a little asterisk on it that says at the bottom, yes, and then maybe. Good series of questions. Thank you. We have a question from Thomas. Last weekend, I tried your world famous armor building complex with kettlebells when my team and I were free of play in my beloved sport, football soccer, and bruised my arms just as I was doing with my legs. I began to research more about your concept of armor building and found that you also recommended tumbling, especially for collision sports. Right. It's a strange thing to talk about armor building because, but then all you got to do is go to a kettlebell or cert or a weightlifting meet and touch people here. And you'll notice that, we call these calluses. And I've had calluses on different parts of my body as an Olympic lifter. My collarbone, clavicle. And of course the skin on the front here from the front squats. But, there is also that weird armor you get, like when you first wrestle, your nose bleeds maybe every day, at least mine did. And then it stops because it armored up. And then, there's that weird, when you wrestle on mats, you get those weird scrapes and then after a couple of months, you don't anymore. So to me, that's what armor building is. As I'm just playing a contact sport, do you think tumbling still has value for football soccer? I'm wondering if a word was missing. I've never actively learned how to fall right, but didn't get injured the last 16 years since I started playing as a 5-year-old. Yeah, I think tumbling and learning how to fall, and it's not for you now, I guess. I'm doing the math. I'm guessing you're 21, 22. But it's for when you're 85 and you slip, that training kicks in. I think fall training, fall breaking, fall training. I'm going to have a course where I fall training. I can just knock people over. They just have great value. And the other thing I like about tumbling is the weird kind of conditioning it pulls up. If you do 5 shoulder rolls here, 5 shoulder rolls here, cartwheels facing this way, cartwheels facing that way, a couple of round offs, and some bear crawls. Okay, just kind of warm uppy stuff. Some people who are listening will walk over and vomit in the bucket because it just throws your vestibular system off. And then when you start getting in that kind of shape, where you do like a cartwheel, you hit the ground, you pop up, round off, hit the ground, pop up. You get in a different kind of conditioning, the kind of conditioning that you'll see in American football, rugby, and the fighting arts. That strange kind of, when someone's rubbing your face, but you still keep breathing and going through it. So that's my advice. Okay, thank you. We have a question from Sandy. You often talk about hanging for shoulder health. Well, because the question comes up a lot, and I do this frequently. If nothing else, it feels good. My partner and I were talking about hanging for shoulder health, and both of us were wondering if the advice is to hang with shoulders engaged, as in the early stage of a pull-up when you retract your shoulders, or simply dead hang. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I just hang, but then one thing I do almost every time now is I bring my knees to my chest, the bent knee leg raise, and because I think that's real good. That's really good for my lower back, So if I'm facing this way, my feet are here, my knees are here. Having all that load here decompresses the spine and forces the pelvic bowl to tilt. And I think there's some value to that. It's also a great little ab shocker. I don't know. I mean, I guess when I do that, I do get a lot more tension in the shoulder. So my answer is, I think you're supposed to just dead hang, but by adding the bent knee work in, I think I get the benefit of both worlds. Why don't you try that? Okay, thank you. We have a question from Noah. Big fan of your truism. Everything works for about 6 weeks. Even when it comes to switching up so that the body gets a novel stimulus, how drastic of a change does it have to be? You can just simply change exercises. Yeah, I guess the easiest, let's do it this way. Rest periods is by far usually the easiest thing to change. I mean, that's just a matter of just changing, either, the timer you're using or how you use the clock. But yeah, I mentioned earlier in this podcast, going from incline to bench press to military press to decline press, going from front squat to back squat. Those are marvelous changes. I found in my career that if I have a difficult exercise, like say I'm doing a front squat program for 6 weeks, I personally find the back squat not nearly as challenging. So for me, if I'm doing the front squat, which is pretty challenging for me, then I'm going to do an upper body exercise that I find, fairly brainless. Like, for example, if I'm doing a tough program, for me, any kind of bench press, any benching exercise is pretty brainless for me. It's like, but if I'm doing, military presses. So if I bench press front squat, military back squat, you see what I'm trying to say? Stay with the more. Try to separate so you don't have all, torturous exercises, whatever those might be with your experience. What's the least you've had to change from one training block to another that still allowed for similar rates of progress? It'd be the emphasis for me. It'd be the emphasis on, especially squats. Okay, so if I have a 6-week, really hard squat, or 12-week in one case, just putting squats back to 2 sets of 2, or just to keep the movement in place for a few weeks. That's the biggest change for me. Decreasing the intensity of the squat. So that's a little different, even probably most people, but that's for me. It's an interesting question, though. I don't know if I've ever answered that second one, but that's very good. Thank you. We have a question. We have a question from Reese, and Reese says, "Hopefully this doesn't stumble into medical advice. My mother-in-law has asked my help to put together a resistance training program to use in the gym she joined. I thought of easy strength as a great fit for that. However, the barbell dumbbell squat will need to be avoided for a few weeks as she currently has a back issue, sciatica. Are there any good alternatives that a trainee can use if they have this issue? I've read that squats should be avoided, but wonder if you had any experience with this." It's interesting because for my back injury prevention, the hanging bent knee leg raise has been my little go-to for years. When I hang like this, it cracks my neck, which has been an issue since probably, 72. And then that bent knee position decompresses my spine and just keeps me, and keeps, of course, it's a very active ab wall. And I think this works. But the other thing that's helped me with my lower back issues is goblet squats. Now, your mileage may vary. So what you're saying, goblet squats can exacerbate the issues of sciatica. But in my case, I found it actually helpful. As always, with the human body, one's mileage may vary. So there is a question. For the hinge, I was going to suggest a Bulgarian goat bag swing, like that idea a lot, instead of any deadlifts. Yeah, the nice thing about the Bulgarian is, by the way, she didn't even need load the first few days. Just do that little wall drill where she just tries to find her hinge. Just go onto my YouTube channel and you can find them. I'm sure I've shown that one, a few times. I like the idea of the Bulgarian, because if anything happens, instant stop. There's no problem. Just stop doing it. I would stay away from anything one-legged for a while, and any hinge or squat movement, I would make sure I have some safety features built in. I'm a big fan of those suspension trainer squats. We've also used to call them doorknob squats. Those seem to work fairly well too. Finally, he asks, will the new Easy Strength book be a revised addition to the original, or it follow on from it? Or, oh, no, it is a complete redo. At top to bottom, the Easy Strength Omni book will have stuff on goal setting. There's a lot more sports discussions. There's a whole section on diet. Easy Strength for Fat Loss. That's my dog who's been woofing. No, it's the Easy Strength Omni book is going to be an entirely different book. A lot more clarity. I thought the original was not very clear. Not at all. I'll have discussions about the squat in there, why it doesn't seem to work for a lot of people, how to make it work for some people, and then an interesting conversation that comes out that some people like. They improve on their hinge, and others improve on their squat. All right, so I'll let you know. It'll be coming out. It's in the fall, I think, for sure. But so we're looking months away. When I'm harvesting my corn, it'll probably be coming out. Okay. Thank you, and thank all of you. Thanks for listening today. This was episode 146. Of the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. Remember, if you have questions, podcast at DanJohnUniversity.com. And until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning.